Let me go? Fine, you'll lose millions. This was around 10 years ago. I've always been very technically minded and was able to read blueprints, construct complex devices, weld, MIG, TIG, stick, certified in fact, among other things. I took a high-paying job with a company that made several things for railroads. The job entailed most of my skills I mentioned above. It was a very small department. In fact, there were only 2 to 3 of us, but we got along great and challenged each other, which led to higher production. Sadly, the one other guy in my department left for a better job, which left me by myself. My supervisor was great as well. Liked to joke around with me, left me alone to focus on my work, and had my back when I needed him. We actually assembled signal enclosures and mast and ladder houses for railroads. Fast forward to 3 years later, and the owners buy a much bigger location and move the whole company. As you might expect, several departments got shuffled. Yep, my department gets folded into a completely different department that has no clue what I do. At first, it was fine, but it starts to go pear-shaped pretty quickly. My new supervisor seemed good at first, but I quickly realize he's a snake in the grass. For example, I had to help the prototype department assemble a new, lighter type of mast and ladder house. So I'm printing out issues and suggesting fixes, among other things. The new supervisor is not happy. He keeps coming over, huffing and groaning under his breath, standing over my shoulder, and he finally interrupts and asks in an angry voice, "How much longer will this take?" I respond, "I have 4 more hours today and 8 hours every day after that." He looks puzzled, so I explain, "This is my department. This is where I work. These are my responsibilities. So if it takes 2 months, that's how long it takes." Almost as if to get the last word in, he says, "You work where and when I tell you," and storms off. Next day, I'm called into the office and they force me to sign a letter that states I now work in my new supervisor's department. Fine by me. I watch from a distance in my new department as all the stock, hardware, parts, and orders of my old department begin to rack up. Since I'm the only one that works in that department, or rather used to work in that department, nobody is doing a thing about it. After about 2 weeks, my old department is a disaster, with items being thrown wherever they'd fit, orders had begun to miss deadlines, and higher-ups wanted answers. Sure enough, I get called into the office where the new supervisor blames me for everything, but wouldn't let me get a word in. Of course, they let me go without any reason or paperwork. The look of relief on my new ex-supervisor's face when I walk out was priceless. He had no clue what was coming. I leave with my smile plastered to my face, because I knew something they didn't. I was the only one that knew how to build the mast and ladder structures. I relaxed at home for about 2 weeks because I knew I'd be getting a call from them. I ignore the first dozen calls, and then I answer. They wanted me for just 2 days to catch up on builds and training the new guys that they've hired. Sure, I said. For $20,000. Now, that might seem like a lot, but it wasn't. They made millions from these. So there was really only one option. Pay me $20K or lose millions. Long story short, they went back and forth with me, but finally conceded. I received $20K for 2 days' work and they were helpless. The cherry on top was my new ex-supervisor was fired for being a nitwit and costing the company $20K. I still left after that and didn't really want to be with the company after all of that went down. I just took the money and ran. Some further information, I didn't want to work for them again. It potentially would have been a situation. They used my knowledge and training of the new staff only to terminate me for some made-up reason. Which I understand. Nobody wants a disgruntled employee. Why $20K? I bounced around on numerous figures, but when it came time to say a number over the phone, $20K was the number that came out. No real thought. Could I have gotten more? Yeah, I think so. It's funny, after I hung up, I instantly regretted not asking for more, but the cat was out of the bag at that point. But it paid for my bills, spent some, got a little vacation, and it gave me time to be picky about my next job. Did I get another job? Yes. As to your question, could I train 2 new workers in 2 days? Yes. Did I do it well? No. The company wanted it as cheap as possible. So they grabbed 2 new guys from a different department with 0 experience. The best I could do was show them the general process, given their limited experience and my limited time. They both seemed lost and clueless. Nice guys, but just confused about everything. Plus, I was zipping through it pretty quick just to get done. On the second day, one guy asked, "What's a level for?" I shook my head and said, "Godspeed, boys. Godspeed." The company commonly flew me out to different states to verify all the specs were working out, or if a company needed something different. Can't see that working out for them. As far as getting all of the work up to date, in my department the expected production was 2 per day. My personal record in one day was 18 before I stopped. My previous supervisor told me to stop, saying, "What are you going to do after you finish a month's worth of work in a day? You'll be sitting around with nothing to do or you'll be going home early." The first month I was there, I set up a series of jigs that allowed fast, repeatable results. That, coupled with years of doing it, meant I could build them in my sleep. Gosh, it must have been so satisfying walking out of there already pre-aware that they were going to be forced to come crawling back to you eventually. As to whether you could have asked for more, the narrator assumes that above a certain price point there are probably other industry specialists that they could fly in, which would have taken longer to work out what was going on and then train the newbies in the job, but I think the author would have had to jack the price up several times to get there. 20k isn't ridiculous for a consultant, especially given that you lose at least a third of it to taxes as a self-employed person. Oh well, sounds like they came out of it feeling pretty damn good about it, and that's better than nothing. Yeah, so as it so often is, new company and incompetent managers are the jerks here, and our craftsman extraordinaire who can make 18 masts in a day was just getting his due after they made the blunder of sacking their essential staff member. With any luck, they went on to be hired by a company not entirely run by low IQ chimps with no grasp of what their company was supposed to be making. If you like Am I the Jerk, you're probably going to love Am I the Genius. Check it out, linked below. Also, go to amithejerk.com/submit if you would like to submit your own stories. Am I the jerk for pressing charges on a former friend for shaving my head in my sleep? For context, a relative of what used to be a close friend of mine, the friend who we'll call Gary for this story, contracted a terminal illness. I, a mid-20s male, was sympathetic and even contributed $100 to a donation pool for their treatment. But Gary came to me one day and took off his hat to reveal a freshly shaven head. He told me that everyone in his family were doing it to support his relative, so were a lot of our mutual friends. Then he asked me to get on that bandwagon. I told him I didn't want to shave my head because I like my hair. My hair is black, regularly combed and well-styled. He said I could just get a wig or something and had actually brought his shaver kit. He was unboxing it when I told him that wasn't happening. I don't even really know his relative that he's doing this for, so I'm not doing it, end of discussion. He left, angry. We didn't speak for a week. Then last Saturday, I got invited to a party at another close friend's house. There I found out that Gary had tried the same thing on several other friends, and only a couple of them actually did shave their heads. Gary wasn't at the party, so I had a blast hanging out, playing video games and listening to rock music. But I had way too much to drink and couldn't drive home, so they said I could just sleep upstairs. I passed out on a bed and it was a blissful sleep until I was awakened by another friend who told me Gary had showed up later and they caught him shaving my head while I was passed out. I saw what I looked like in a mirror and wanted to scream like I was in a horror movie. Gary even shaved off one of my eyebrows. Gary was still there and acting real proud of himself. "Now you're gonna have to shave off the rest, just like me. Ha!" I was furious and I called the cops. When they got there, Gary fully admitted to what he had done to me and even said he was justified. The police didn't seem to think so, as this was classified as a form of assault. They asked me if I wanted to press charges, and the first words out of my mouth were, "Hell yes!" Gary cussed me out while they took him away in cuffs. I tried getting my hair restyled into something presentable, but there was no saving it, and now I'm bald too. Now a bunch of Gary's family are telling me to drop the charges because Gary was off his meds and didn't mean to do it. I was like, what the frick? I never knew he was on meds, but I still refuse to drop the charges. It'll take months for me to regrow my hair back to the way it was, but all of the calls and messages from Gary's family are starting to get to me. Just about everyone else in our friend group has cut Gary out though, and they say that I'm doing the right thing by not dropping the charges. So now I'm divided. Am I the jerk for pressing charges on a former friend for shaving my head in my sleep? Okay, update. I want to make something clear here. So many people have said things like, "Dude, it's just hair." But would they all be saying that if I wasn't a man? What if I was some girl that had hair that took years to grow? Would they be saying the same thing then? Sure, hair grows back, but it takes time. If it was something that grew back fast, people would be less inclined to care. But it's not quick. It's months, and for someone who had long hair, years. That's a lot of time to waste growing. And I don't plan on pushing for Gary to go to prison or anything, but I don't plan on dropping the charges either. His family already bailed him out. And while I didn't know he was on meds, I knew he had quite the temper and even an entitled attitude at times. One example being a lunch where he wanted us all to combine the checks and split it evenly. He got the most expensive thing on the menu and I got a cheeseburger. When we all said no, Gary went off on us for not being good friends. He's always been a complete donkey when he doesn't get his way, and I've only known him for about 3 years. This incident was the last straw, not just for me, but for a lot of other mutual friends. As for the charges, I'd like him to get some therapy and community service. With the way Gary has acted around me in the past and what he's done to me, I actually wonder how long before he got more violent. I've seen and heard of him getting in fights for less. The police know every detail about Gary that I've given here, save for his family persecuting me day in and day out, which I intend to tell the police about ASAP. I've also gotten many comments from people saying, "You're the jerk, he has a terminal illness." If you actually read what I posted, Gary isn't the one with the illness. A relative of his I don't know does. And no, I don't know what particular strain of the virus he has. Gary didn't elaborate. He wanted me to shave my head for this person, and when I refused, he left in a tantrum. Then he shaved my head while I was passed out drunk at a party. Unfortunately, I've had to shave the other eyebrow to even out the regrowth. Nah, that guy straight up moderately disfigured you in your sleep against your will and sounds like a complete psychopath, to be honest. Gary is the jerk here, and while his family might have some circumstantial modifiers here, like having one potentially fatal illness in the family and one consistently unstable younger member who it sounds like gets into this sort of thing semi-regularly, they don't really have a leg to stand on. Gary's behavior and his complete failure to elaborate kind of hints that it's all just a big excuse to go ham with the Clippers for some kind of weird fun. And I'll say that I'd never even considered that you could call the cops for this sort of thing, but the more I think about it, the more it makes sense. I know a lot of people would be completely devastated by this sort of disfigurement, even though it's temporary. It would really affect how coworkers and customers might interact with you, as well as just your general confidence and attitude. Your livelihood could actually be affected. So after reading the title, the narrator was thinking, okay, you were the victim of a prank sort of thing like from Jackass, no big deal. But actually, what Gary did was really crappy and kind of unhinged, so he totally deserves what was coming to him. Entitled mum thinks she's more deserving than a children's hospital. First-time poster, long-time lurker. This happened last Wednesday and it's been on my mind ever since. I just don't understand how people can be so awful. I live near a child's hospital in the UK, and they do donation drives occasionally to try and get nice things for the kids. My partner and I had just got a new video game console, so our old one was collecting dust. We thought that since it was close to Christmas, why not donate it? Do something nice. It was a PS4 Pro. So we go to the hospital having filled out a form telling us when to hand it in. They're being strict due to COVID. And unfortunately there was a mix-up with this form. We filled it in for a different hospital and we weren't allowed to queue to hand it in on that day due to infection control. A bit annoying, but never mind, we rebook for the next day and turn to leave. Enter the entitled mum. She was behind us and waiting for her own form, so she must have heard our discussion. A few seconds later, she followed us out to the car park and called out, "Excuse me, did I hear that you're giving away a console?" I said, "Yeah, well, we were going to, but we got a bit mixed up." "So, you don't need it anymore?" "No, but we're booked in for tomorrow, so it'll be okay." "Why don't you give it to me? I could give it to my son for Christmas." Sorry, but we wanted to give it to the hospital. Do some good, you know?" "Are you saying this wouldn't be doing good?" She raised her voice out of nowhere, no idea what I said to offend her. "We've had a horrible year and this would be amazing for my son." My fiancé stepped in to help. "Lots of people have had a bad year. We just feel that the hospital is the best place for it." "Why? I'm in need too. It isn't fair to give everything to those kids. My son has been good all year and he deserves it more." "It's not a competition. We're giving it to the hospital." "You're so rude. You should give things to people who need them. If they're in hospital, they don't need games. It's a stupid idea." "Sorry, like I said, we're booked in for tomorrow. We're going to get our bus now." At this point, he helped usher me away from her. I'm not great with confrontation, and she kept calling out to us as we left about how her son was more deserving than the kids in the hospital. How it was rude of us to ignore her. It was pretty awful. Sorry if I'm not great at telling the story. I'd like to think that she didn't necessarily think she was better, she just spotted an opportunity and really went for it, however that made her look. And we did go back the next day to very grateful nurses, so it's a happy ending. Merry Christmas, everyone reading. It'll take more than one entitled lady to spoil my merriment. Also, they're gonna die anyways, why bother making them happy? My son will at least live till Christmas. Thankfully she didn't say that, but I bet she was thinking it. Just a horrible lady. Plot twist. That lady goes there every day and tries to freeboot the bureaucratically rejected presents from everyone every Christmas and is saving hundreds on gifts every year. Jokes aside, imagine seeing a charitable gift as an opportunity to get something for you. I mean, we all know that there are people who do this kind of thing all the time and on a much grander scale, like defrauding charities, but it's rare that we run into such concrete examples in our everyday life. The hovering spectre of public shame at least keeps them from rearing their ugly heads in regular situations. For the most part, anyway. Yeah, I'm not sure that any of us can misconstrue who is the jerk here and who isn't in this situation. If you ever wonder about that in a situation like this, ask yourself, is me taking this going to take it out of the hands of sick children? If the answer is yes, go home and rethink your life. Am I the jerk for not giving my sister $70,000 for the wedding? I, 32-year-old female, got married 4 years ago, and my husband, 35, and his family are many times over millionaires. My family is just middle class. Our wedding cost around $700,000, paid by him and his parents. Our parents gave me a flat fee of $10,000 for a dress, which they're giving to my sister too. So my 25-year-old sister and her 26-year-old fiancé are lower class. With a combined $280,000 of student loan debt, interest made it go crazy, and $18,000 of medical debt and $35,000 in credit card debt. Well, last night was my sister's birthday dinner and she announced she was engaged and wanted help paying for the wedding. She gave me a spreadsheet of how much she was going to need for her dream wedding. Anyways, her dream wedding is supposed to cost $100,000, and as her only sister, apparently I need to step up and help pay for the wedding since our sisters only gave her $10,000. She said she needs me to give her at least $70,000 since I'm rich now. When I told her I'm not giving her $70,000, she cried and said it wasn't fair, I get whatever I want. When she realized I wasn't going to budge, she broke down about how I'm just using motherhood to be greedy and lazy. I have twins, 2 years old. I eventually told her I wasn't going to be bullied into giving her $70,000. She's 15 weeks pregnant, hence why she's in a rush to be married right away. When I tried to leave, she just snapped that I was a bad mother since my mother-in-law stays over often. Anyway, she screams on and on about how my borderline personality disorder for the first few months after giving birth wasn't real and that I only had BDP to cover up the fact that I'm a terrible mother and even worse wife, since I wasn't well enough to do the deed with my husband for a few months. I told Mum and Mum told her. I feel bad since I know she's struggling, but I hate her for saying that kind of stuff in front of strangers. My brother, who's usually neutral, says I should forgive her since she's stressed out from crippling debt and has 2 kids and a third on the way. Her 8-year-old's dad doesn't pay child support and her 4-year-old's dad pays almost nothing. Families don't help either. She claimed I'm jealous of her since she's younger than me, and that since I'm over 30, my husband is probably cheating on me with my housekeeper and nanny for all I know, since I'm, quote, never home. I have helpers twice a week, mostly just to go to the salon with friends and weekly date night. She's mad at our parents because they were more happy for me about my kids. They helped for the first 2 months. Our parents didn't want to keep her kids since she couldn't provide, so they refused to help with showers or anything else. She thinks I should have let her and her family move into my condo, since there's rooms we could technically turn into bedrooms for them. She wanted me to put my kids in my husband's office, her kids in my son's room, and her fiancé go in my daughter's room. They live in a small 2-bed, 2-bath apartment, and she and her family stay in one room, and my parents stay in another room. Reason is because world happened and they couldn't make the rent. My husband is completely done with her. He said I can forgive her, but he won't. Our parents want to forget. Who's the jerk here? So I'll get to that hanging question in a second. Allow the narrator to just say, I hate this situation, and it leaves a worse taste in my mouth than crazy hospital console lady. Who can spend this much on a wedding? Honestly, even the cheaper $100,000 option seems completely ridiculous to me. Am I just a cheapskate? I hate everything about the opening and how much people are dumping into this one event. I mean, these people are spending on a dress the lion's share of what I think a wedding should cost in the first place. Maybe I'm just delusional and the costs have gone up exponentially since the narrator worked in catering. Sorry, rant over. The sister who wanted the rest of the family to fork over $70,000 for her wedding is the jerk. If you're going to get married, marry within your means. People can offer to help pay, but you don't just get to expect it of people. I'm also questioning how real some of the story is, but that's neither here nor there. The whole thing leaves a bad taste in my mouth. Thanks for watching. When you subscribe, make sure to hit the bell to turn on notifications. Put the playlist on in the background to finish listening to all the stories. Or if you want to check out some great music, check out easymode.com. If you like Am I the Jerk, give Am I the Genius a shot. Everything linked in the description.